Welcome back. You know, a lot of us have the same problem. We're tied to our phones, we're addicted to them. Well, there is one company saying, listen, we have a solution. It's called Off the Grid, and they say that what they do is get a bunch of people together, specifically millennials who are tied to their phones, and they send you on a trip with each other, a tour group style, and you cannot have any access to your phone whatsoever. They give you what's called a dumb phone, which just lets you make calls to tell your parents you're alive. But other than that, they send you to places like Lisbon and Prague. There's 24 to 30 people in 6 cities around the world. That's the kind of trips they give. And its first 2 tours start this summer and they're on track to sell out. What do you guys think of this? 5 words or less.
Quit phoning in your life.
Instagram's arch nemesis.
Unplug, unwind, unfollow, unfriend. Unbelievable.
This is a great idea.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's a really good idea.
If it's a tour group, that's the best version of it, because when I go traveling, the one thing I need is like to at least know where I am and where the next thing I'm going to is, because I will literally have a panic attack.
And some structure, I think, is helpful, especially when you're in a new city, just saying, hey, don't worry about anything for the next 2 hours, wander around, but after that, meet us back here.
Right.
You need that.
Have you ever gone on a trip where you have no access to any technology? Like,
no.
No?
Never been on
Never,
it. Well,
ever,
I guess when I was younger, before we had phones.
Right, but think about that. How are trips now different from the trips you used to take when it was like a Rand McNally map or something, like some kind of, you go to the hotel and they just give you just a map and go like, here's where the Coliseum is, or like, here's where the Arby's is.
We're not present. I remember coming to LA summer 2000 and we had a TomTom. The TomTom guide, like we had the map, and we're in the
TomTom was the one that's like turn left,
right,
and back there.
And the Thomas guide, it was Thomas guide,
3
and we
miles
had
back.
and we had we're in a Dodge Intrepid, and your question was, what did we do back then? We enjoyed it. We enjoyed it. And I mean, I remember getting a BlackBerry in 2007, and that whole year I was so attached to it, and I realized I had a problem. I had a problem. But I think this is great. You know, I'm going to Europe in the fall, and Munchkin's biggest concern is that I won't be able to detach. And I think, and I want to. I know I have a sickness. I know I need intervention. I know I need help. But it's just so hard to do because we've ingrained ourselves into our phones, our emails. Everything is just so readily available here. So for someone to not have that control anymore, it's scary. I get you having a panic attack of not knowing where you're gonna be. That's not unwarranted.
Right.
But me missing out on Instagram, or I'm in this really dope place and not posting it scares me.
Yeah.
I'm scared.
Well, here's a stat, 73% of social media users find it annoying when they see other people's vacation photos.
Agreed, boom. Yes.
That's the only reason
I don't hate it, but I think it's bad when they're posting like 20 in a row. It's like, yeah, we saw you went to Greece in your first pic. Like I don't need 20 more.
And with me, I just went someplace and I posted a lot of stuff. But the reason I went is because I guess I was surprised with it. But the reason I was like, yeah, there's a lot to this story. But for the last like 4 or 5 weeks, I'd seen friends who were there. And I was just like, oh my God, I need to go.
It's the FOMO factor. It's for real. The social media hooks you in with that. You're not cool enough because you're not doing this.
Look what I'm doing.
Right, I'm stuck at AT&T selling cell phones. Why Josh Delacello.
It's so bad.
Yeah, is out and about killing it.
Here's something, searching for a place to eat at night when you have Yelp will give you a different experience than just wandering around downtown and asking someone on the street where they like to eat.
I thought that was a cool idea because I feel like the best places when you go travel are places that aren't necessarily gonna be on Yelp.
Yeah.
It's gonna be places that like a local might know. So I feel like that's such a great idea.
That is true, although it definitely depends on where you're traveling. A city like Lisbon, you can do that. But I was comparing this to like the most recent extravagant trip that I went on was with Lizzie and I drove from LA to Alaska. And like there were certain places where if we had not had Yelp or Wi-Fi, we straight up would not have known where to have eaten for a day. Like, cause there's nothing around.
When I was a kid.
So you couldn't ask someone on the street like flagging down cars like, pizza! Like, you have nothing.
But there is. If you look on the map, it'll be, and it's terrible. But like if you look on the exit signs, they say like food that way, lodging that way.
But
it's a secret code.
Back in the day, that, Brett, and back in the day, you'd go to a gas station and they said that they had food, and we rolled up and they did not. But they did have food in the '90s, but the sign hadn't changed.
Exactly.
And so we're like, hello, and
but
we
that's
were hungry.
like that's the stuff that like my dad loved. We would go on road trips all the time, and you go to like AAA. And then they would pull out maps and highlight where you're driving. And then they're like one person in the front like this, covering the mirror, and it's like, I need to move over there. God damn it. But those were such great trips. It's great now that Gentiles get to experience this. Because Jews have this thing called birthright, where you just get to go to Israel with a bunch of kids. And all the stories of it are just like, it's the best trip you could ever imagine going on. And if it's just a bunch of millennials together, people that are about the same age, doing the same thing in a tour group situation without the internet, oh my God, that sounds like such an ideal trip. It's like summer camp. It's fantastic.
Right. And you're forced, when you're forced to do something and you're forced to, you have no choice. It's like it's like when you don't have a car, you're forced to find a way to get around, right?
Yeah, it's like Orson Welles was like, art thrives when there are constraints and it's impossible without them.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how many people understand that it is such an important experience to have, and that generations that will be raised only knowing screens and having this access to everything, because we can all kind of check into a trip when we didn't have this. It'll be interesting to see if a younger generation understands that this could be a really important way of getting outside their comfort zone. So that's where we'll see if the company works, because some people might, if you're raised understanding it and finding ways that they feel is natural and normal to ingrain it in your everyday life, they might not know that it's something they would even be interested in trying.
There's a mix. They said there's a line in the thing that's like, wouldn't it be great if you didn't have a camera? And it's like, well, I went on a trip when I was in college with some friends after freshman year. We didn't have internet at all. We just had like crappy cell phones that didn't work. And it was amazing, but I'm so grateful that I do have photographs.
Yeah, you can be present and take photos. I think that taking photos actually does require a certain presence of mind to recognize which photos you want to capture, especially if you don't have the thought of how quickly can I share this. If it's like, I just want to capture certain moments.
Put it away.
We all look back on trips, photos from trips fondly, I hope.
Yeah. And then the idea that you go get them developed, that's what I liked.
Yeah,
you get them developed. You could do an app where it won't show you the picture until later. I mean, if that doesn't exist.
We should have a Pop Trigger segment just called Grumpy Old Hosts, of like the good old days of travel, you know?
Don't get me wrong, dudes love maps is what it's like a saying. And I love maps and I love my GPS and I love like to unlock the secrets by going to like some random website's almanac of where to visit.